Well, folks, it is the 50th anniversary of the American Pie World Tour. The hit song American Pie went #1 50 years ago and remained #1 for 8 weeks.
The 8.5-minute anthemic song now inspiring a brand new children's book, Don McLean's American Pie, a Fable. We have it right here with us. And we also have the legendary singer-songwriter himself, Don McLean, live here in studio with us. So honored to have you here,
Thank
Don. You have been asked countless times what American Pie means. And I know you have famously responded, it means you never have to work
That's what
again.
I say, yes.
But after
and
50
people
years...
applaud. You know,
Well,
like they're
yes.
applauding indigence, not working.
But the song is still regarded as one of the top songs of the 20th century, and it continues to be part of the soundtrack of so many people's lives. So I want to know, what is it about this song that makes it so iconic and truly transcending time and generations?
Well, you know, we had a different time period back in 1970, 71. There was a different audience. The audience knew, you knew what the audience wanted. We were in sync, you know. I couldn't do that today. I couldn't do it at a different time. It's a different, totally different country now. Mm-hmm. I would write something else. But in those days, you had many songwriters writing unique songs, Good Vibrations, Day in the Life. You know, we were really stretching out and writing things that were unheard of, really, in popular music. And you'll never have that happen again, I don't think, because the song really doesn't matter that much now. It's more the spectacle, you know, and it's background music for all the stuff on stage, the set changes and everything.
When this came out, I mean, even back then, most songs were 3 minutes long, and they got to it, they got to their hook, they got out. This was completely different when it came out. I mean, you mentioned there's some maybe longer version songs that were out there. Most of them were like concert or live version things. This was different.
I was different. You know, my music was different. The kinds of things that I did many different things. I was always coming from different directions. And I Love You So. Most people didn't know that I was the same guy that sang American Pie. And the song would be recorded by many people later. I had a #1 with Crying. Nobody knew that I was the same guy that did those other songs, or Castles in the Air, because they're all different. But that's just what I do. And now and then I get lucky and something would happen. And in those days, again, you had this audience and they liked these records. And so that's really what sustained me. I was an album artist, really, not a commercial artist.
Right.
And now you are introducing the song, the concept, to a brand new generation with your new book.
Yeah, this is called
Fable.
American Pie, a Fable. And I did a lot of interviews with a lady named Judy Proffer, who actually wrote the text of the book from interviews that we did. And she wanted to know about my childhood, because in American Pie, I talk about being a paper boy. Every paper I deliver. So she used that as a template. It doesn't really follow the song exactly, but it does reference the song, and you have to read it. But the boy is Donnie Boy, and he's a paper boy, and it takes that part of my life growing up. But it's mystical, really. She did a fabulous job. And, you know, at the end, he gets his guitar and goes off to find his future. And so I really loved it, because more and more there's less for children. And really, their childhood has almost been taken away from them. They go so quickly, you know, into high speed. You know, going into school, all of a sudden, rush, and computers and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's too bad they don't have at least 7 years of being blissfully ignorant of all this stuff. But, you know, we have an environment now where we have to have TV all the time, right, and you can't get away from seeing all this stuff. So I don't know. I think it has a terribly negative effect on young people. They're just not, even wearing these masks all the time. You've got to ask, Mommy, why am I doing this? You know, all sorts of explanations. It's very rough, but we have to deal with these things. You know, this is life. You know, this is what happens.
And American Pie, in a lot of ways, was very nostalgic and lamenting moving on with life after something like, I assume it was about the plane crash, the day the music died.
Well, I carried that with me I'll tell you quickly a story. I carried that with me for many, many years. Nobody cared. I can tell you that right now. And nobody knew anything about anybody. Nobody knew anything about anybody back in 1959 or 1960. The only way you could find out anything was to look at the back of a record cover.
Right.
And that was PR most of the time, you know? So I was into this. So I started being started searching for things about Buddy Holly. I wanted to know more about him, but again, there was nothing. Well, about 10 years later now, I'm out of college and everything else, and I'm singing with Pete Seeger, and he takes us to the Newport Folk Festival, and I meet the Everly Brothers. Of course, in my little research, my side research, I had learned that the Everlys were very close to Buddy Holly. So I walked up to them one day, and I asked Phil Everly, you know, can you tell me a little about Buddy Holly? And well, you know, I was 24. I said, what happened, you know? Well, he said, he had to do his dirty laundry. I said, what? He said, yeah, he took a plane to go to be able to do his laundry, and then he'd catch up with this tour. The same night he'd be singing. Wow. And I said to myself, wow, all of a sudden everything got shook up in my head. It was like a real person. He took other guys' laundry with him too. I got through that. I said, holy mackerel, that's a whole different thing from this God that I had thought of. You know, he's just a regular guy, you know, making a living. So it started. That's when that's the first part of American Pie came right out from a long, long time ago, right through the day the music died. And I thought to myself, I'd been wanting to write this long song about America. And I said, now I have it. I have it. I fuse Buddy's death with all of this other stuff. And I've got it. And so it was like, you know, Frankenstein, it's alive.
Yeah.
You know, I had it. It was alive. I had it.
You could tell.
No, I didn't want to blow it. So,
do you remember when you first heard it on the radio?
Oh, when it came right out, you know, there was a short version that went to #1, and then all the FM stations started complaining that the real version was 8.5 minutes, and then they started playing the 8.5 minute version, but they didn't have the technology to put that on one disc. It had to be on two sides of a 45. Wow. That's when the 8.5 minute version became #1, and that so-called record stayed for 50 years.
Wow, amazing. Really, really amazing. Thanks for sharing that story. And of course, congratulations on the book and 50 years of American Pie. I know a soundtrack of so many people's lives.
We'll go buy the book, and then the kids will say, well, what's the song about? Well, you can buy the song.
That's right. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You can find out more about the tour by going to donmclean.com, and there's a special deal for veterans as well. To get 2 good tickets for $100, go online, check it out.